The Hay Band Network.
Welcome to the Hey Band Network. Today we have a special series and a great guest, Daniel Galloway. Welcome to the Hey Band Network.
Thank you for having me here, Chad.
So we're going to talk about band, brass playing, and barbecue, of all things. And so this should be fun. And so people that know Daniel, he's created some really cool things online in our time away from school. So we'll get into that at the end. But first of all, Daniel's exiting Clements High School. He's been there for several years. He just performed at Midwest, so great honor for that. And he's taken on a new job as a head director at Jordan High School in the Katy district. And so let's back up a little bit. How long were you at Clements?
I was at Clements for 18 years and 15 years as a head director.
And a fantastic band. If you've ever heard the band, the concert band, just fantastic. And they performed at Midwest. So tell us a little bit about your Midwest experience with your students this year.
Well, one of the things we were actually going to submit for Midwest 2 years ago. If you can believe this, the band was actually a little bit better back then and had a little bit older kids. But my assistant had cancer, and he's gotten he's been, I guess, remission, whatever that is. And it wasn't terribly serious, but I was like, at the time, it's like, this isn't the right thing to do. So we just kind of put everything on the shelf. And then when we did the recording for the submission this year, for us to perform this year, everything just came together. It was like we only did one run, and it just all came together. And after I got done doing the recording session of the run, and we did Mitzlach's Traveler, I turned to everybody who was with me, and they're like, don't try that again. Just let it go. And then we ran the march, and we only needed 2 runs of the march. And so it was just kind of a thing that just kind of happened. So when we made Midwest, we kind of we made a plan in May, and we actually scheduled out every single rehearsal through November 7th for the kids on a Google Doc, and exactly what they were going to be rehearsing. And we pretty much stuck to it. And that, I think, kept everybody's sanity during Texas football marching season. The top band never really rehearsed marching band. We just did concert band every day. And I never I never thought that I would be more happy doing that. And then we forced the issue. I didn't tell the kids or the staff. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I said, we're doing a concert next week of everything. Mm-hmm. And that kind of lit everybody lit a fire underneath everybody, and it forced the issue, and they did well in the concert. It kind of took the pressure off them once they knew that they could play everything. So we went into Thanksgiving, no rehearsals. I think the kids were looking at me like, is there something wrong with you? And then we didn't really rehearse a whole lot in December because the kids had final exams and the kids had region band. I wanted them to still do well at that. And it was interesting. It was the way we paced it worked out great. And then we went to Chicago. We actually, one of the things I would recommend if you ever get to do something like this is rehearse at a school in Chicago. Don't rehearse at a hotel, because you get to play on a stage. There's all the equipment. There's not this weird hotel room that you're in. And the other thing, other things that we did that I thought were brilliant on my assistant's part was, when you go to another place to play, there's a humidity change. And so your woodwinds freak out when they first get to Chicago because it's really out of tune. So we took all of their reeds and we put them in plastic bags with orange slices in them. And it kept the reeds from drying out. And so the first time we played in Chicago, I was like, this is actually in tune. And everybody just kind of adjusted, and then we moved on. And so just little tricks to the trade that I'm actually hopefully going to be doing a clinic on at TVA about what we did. And then we had the best. Well, my director of fine arts was like, that's the best I've ever heard your band play. And of course, that meant the world to me. The kids had a blast, and we just kind of made it fun for them instead of pressure, because they already knew that there was pressure because they were playing some pretty serious lit. We did the Celebration Overture by Creston to start off the program, and if you don't know that piece, you better have the people to be able to pull it off. And it's major stress, but once we got past that, it was a phenomenal experience. It was a great way to go out at Clements. And the kids, were great. We didn't have one problem. It was probably the best trip I've ever taken with the group. So I'm happy that, with our situation with COVID, a lot of band directors who are retiring who never got to have another concert with their kids. And everybody's like, are you sad about that? And I was like, actually, I'm not, because I had the best concert in December. So I hate to say it like that, but that's, after we did the concert, we gave the kids a long break, and we just, the band could play anything I really put in front of it at that point. And so we were just kind of playing, we were just like, well, let's just do this or let's just do that. And we were doing a march featuring all these soloists and stuff. And, we weren't really in the same drive as other Texas band directors are, like pushing and pushing and pushing for honor band and stuff. So when we hit this break that happened, the kids weren't, they were like, we liked what we were playing, but they were like, we're okay, and so it turned out to be kind of a good dynamic. So transitioning to Jordan, I live almost an hour and a half away from Clements, and I had the opportunity. There were several administrators in Katy who knew me, and it was just an opportunity for me. It had nothing to do with the kids, and I told the kids that, and they actually were like, okay. They were like, can we still get a recommendation from you? That was pretty much what they thought. So, and I've had several surf in the past couple of days. They did a car parade for me 2 weeks ago at Clements, because we couldn't see each other. So they lined all the cars up in the parking lot, and they did a parade by, and, bye, Mr. Galloway. It was actually pretty cool. They had a drone filming it. So it turned out to be bittersweet, but not. Jordan High School it's a great opportunity. It's a brand new facility. And it's something that it's one of the only things that I haven't gotten to do in my career. So I'm going to open a new high school, and that's been a very interesting experience during the coronavirus to do. So was closing out one high school and opening up another. So that was interesting. And when you've been someplace 18 years and you take the leap of faith, you're going to go into another place that everything's new to you. But I had a principal who was a principal with me, and a superintendent who was my principal. So they've made things really pretty easy. And I have to give them credit. They have not said no to anything. So I'm sure there'll be a time where I'm told no, but yeah. So it's opening as a 5A high school with 1,400 kids. It's actually opening that big. And they say in 2 years it'll be at 3,000 kids.
And so let's talk about the Jordan program. Like, so how many kids? What are some things you've done? Obviously, it's always a challenge when you start a new school anyway, but to add to that, being online for everything we've done. So how you manage through some of that stuff?
Well, luckily I made, I don't know whether my spidey sense was going off, you better go meet these kids. I managed to make it to the 2 junior highs that feed Jordan, and there's 2 high schools that also are moving kids over to Jordan, but the bigger high school is Tompkins. So we did a parent meet and greet right before the coronavirus happened, and it was the week before spring break. So there was about 60 to 70 people at that meeting, and then the kids had all met me at the other schools. So they at least knew who I was. I did a PowerPoint about my expectations and what we're going to do. And then all heck broke loose. And so I started, I have to give credit to Katy band directors, because they all sent me email addresses to all the kids and their parents. And so we just started communicating via that way. And the same thing with the director of fine arts, Michael Lett. He says, hey, let's get together at my house. The next thing you know, we're not allowed to go anywhere. So I've ordered $800,000 to $1 million worth of instruments and equipment like this. And it's just been a lot of being patient and communicating every day. I probably spent the first 2 or 3 weeks at Jordan on the computer 8 hours a day, just doing the setup part. We did all Zoom leadership stuff with kids that I hadn't met. We picked our drum majors via Zoom. We picked our section leaders via Zoom. And then what I also did was I created a website as soon as I could, and have to give Brad Honeycutt a shout out. He's my drill writer, and he's also the person who runs the website. So the kids and the parents immediately had a place to go. They could go look at, oh, this is what we're doing. And I got up there as soon as I could, the new uniform. As soon as anything new happened, I was getting it out there and sending out an email. Oh, look at this. And that kept people interested. And so we just had a booster club. I had a booster club parent who was very much like, what do you need help with? And I said, I need you to help like start a booster club. And so she just got a lawyer friend of hers to do it. They drew up the papers, and we had a booster club within 4 weeks. So we're actually meeting at a bank to get them on the checkbook, checking account stuff tomorrow. And we did a Zoom parent meeting. And the Zoom parent meeting had pretty much every single kid on it. I was shocked. So they're pretty eager to be successful. The kids from Jordan, the students moving into Jordan, they're coming from Seven Lakes and Tompkins, which are both two very strong band programs in the Katy Independent School District. And, there's just been a lot of communication in that part. I had a show, had the fight song written. I had the school song was written, and I orchestrated it. So like by the time we hit mid-April, we had everything. But I also think this is kind of strange. Having the coronavirus happen meant I had nothing at Clements to do.
Yeah.
There's no rehearsal. There's just no rehearsing. I mean, we were giving the kids assignments at Clements, but when you have 30 seniors in a top end that went to Midwest, I wasn't giving them a scale test. It was like, what, really? I'm going to do that? You just played 3 grade 6s in Midwest, and I'm going to make you play the concert A flat scale. So I gave them assignments like, hey, which Masaka piece did you like? What do you think about this? More like holistic stuff to keep them engaged. But in some ways, being able to be in the computer and not somewhere else, I got everything done faster. And now they're chomping at the bit to get in the building. Of course, we have guidelines and stuff, but pretty much every single instrument, all the uniforms are ordered. They'll be here by early August, which I was shocked. And then, everything is done. We've hired marching techs, we've hired a color guard instructor, we've hired an assistant. All that happened in that kind of downtime that we were all in the coronavirus. What are we going to do time? I knew exactly what I needed to do. So the only thing that's been strange is that the kids, they want to be with each other and start forming that bond of being Jordan kids, and they can't. Yeah. And that's the weird thing. When can we practice? Well, we can't. When can we have a social? We can't. Even their parents have been like, well, we're socializing where we live. And I was like, you can't, just don't say that.
Yeah.
Don't record that on Zoom. So it's been interesting. It's been a little bit of a strange dynamic with our department because none of us know each other, but we have to have department meetings. So I'm the department chair, and when somebody's already done something that's a no-no, I call them up on Zoom, and I'm like, let's discuss this. Oh, by the way, I've never met you. So It's been a little bit of an interesting dynamic along those lines. But because the principal knows me and there's an assistant principal coming over from Clements, it's made things much, much easier. So I'm not so sure I would be struggling as much. I would be struggling more with the logistics of Jordan if I didn't have the time to deal with it. It's just the whole meeting the kids part. So that's and Jordan's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be great, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the same as Clements. And that's the one thing that I've had to fight is somebody says, well, we did it like this and I don't want to use the word Clements. I say, well, in my experience, this is what I would like. And if you ever open a new school, you go somewhere new, if you keep on talking about the old place, you kind of lose some validity. So I just kind of stayed back and said, well, what do you all think? And then I said, okay, well, this is in my experience. And so that's helped out a lot, and just kind of not, they all kind of know where I come from anyways, because we've competed against them. So that's helped also, where they're like, oh yeah, y'all have beaten us. Okay. or y'all are this band or this and the other. I don't even have to really say anything, and I don't want to do that. We need to be about us. So it's going to be fun. It's a very interesting football schedule at Jordan. We're doing what's called a pirate football schedule. I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
No.
So we just have to play. We're not playing JV teams. They're having us play a step, not when I say step, but a UIL level lower varsity team.
Mm-hmm.
And that supposedly makes the football team better in the years. Maybe not what was thought of was we have to travel 2 to 2.5 hours to find somebody to play.
Yeah.
So I said, this is a great idea. Did y'all think of the band and the drill team? And of course, I just get blank stares in those Zoom meetings. It's like, okay, well, if y'all are willing to pay for it, we'll go. So we're playing everything from the Louisiana border to south of Austin as a football schedule. So it's been, but we only have to go to 7 games because I finally told him, principal's like, he was super cool about it. He goes, well, you have to go to contest and we don't want to kill the kids. So let's just go to 5 to 7 games. So that's been the compromise.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have lots of away games. Like we don't play one game at home.
Oh, wow.
Like we have one game at home and that has to be like whatever they call it, new coming, because nobody's graduated.
Right. Yeah.
But then, we have one game at home and that has to be junior high night. And then the rest of them are on the road. So that's the interesting thing about, this football schedule that I've been involved in is that you're not playing at a JV stadium. We're getting to go play at some good bands, Little Cypress, Mauriceville. We're playing 2 new schools, Lake Belton and Davenport. We're playing them 4 times because they can't find anybody else to play either. So, and we're meeting them in the middle. So so we're playing in smaller stadiums, but nice stadiums, but we're not just playing at somebody's JV field. So that's the positive part of it. So it's been interesting dealing with the pirate football schedule, as they call it.
And so what are some things that through this experience of getting Jordan ready that you feel will, besides, I mean, you've kind of set some stuff up, but some things you think might actually help in dealing with the COVID of closure? Are there things that you've dealt with at your Clements or have seen people that you can use starting a new school once you start back to teaching? We see the kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think my network has been the best thing I've brought over to Jordan is that there's been people who have said, oh, you're at Jordan? I want to be there. Mm-hmm. And they know that they know the kids in the community that is very supportive. And so, I mean, I've had a lot of people, like I had like 20 people apply for the color guard position. I never would have thought that. I have 22 color guard kids, which is kind of unusual for a brand new high school. And 14 of them are like veteran color guard kids. They're coming from good programs. So, that's one of the things is that I've been able to use my network. I've gotten some drum corps kids to agree to be techs. The percussion side of things, we have just a percussion contractor position for the first year because we'll phase into 3rd band director, and there's been people coming out of the woodwork. Yeah, I want to go there. So that's one of the things coming from Clements. Once they figure out you're not at Clements anymore, you're at Jordan, they're wanting to go with me or work with us and be part of it. A lot of people have said they've been excited to build something with me. So that's the thing that's been a positive from my, I don't know, I guess just my background. People know me and I've kept it on the down low. I just, like I told you earlier, I just didn't want to do the whole Facebook thing, make it Facebook official. There was actually still a couple parents even 2 or 3 days ago at Clements. They were like, oh, you're leaving? And I was like, yeah, we've told people that. But I also think that when people do that, and I'm not indicting anybody on it, but this is just my opinion, let's make it about the kids. And I just met with the kids for 10 minutes at Clements, told them, this is something that I need to do personally. And they were pretty okay with it. I mean, they were like, and so I think having that attitude of, Kim Shuttlesworth gave me this advice because she opened a new school in Leander. She said, you can't look back except to look back on the good things, and you just have to move forward. And that's the kind of the thing that I've looked at because, Clements is 240 kids in the band next year. I have 75. I can't, it's apples and oranges. So that's been the real big thing for me personally is just move forward, remember the good times, if you need something, let me know. So, and then a lot of people have wanted to come with me over there. So there's 5 teachers alone leaving Clements to go to that one school. So that's kind of interesting that there's 5 teachers from the same school all leaving, and an assistant principal to go to the same place. So anyways, that's what I brought over to the Jordan program.
And what an exciting thing for you, and in a great district and a brand new program. At this time, you've established yourself. You've had a great career, and now you're gonna take it somewhere else. And there's some benefits to you also.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't tell you. I will say it's been scary,
Yeah.
and I've already run into some roadblocks. I've had to have a parent conference or 2 already about, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. But you kind of have to relearn how to deal with people. You were at the same place for 18 years. Everybody kind of dealt with you instead of you dealing with them. And you kind of have to figure out when to push and when to not push. And there's a couple of times where I've thought, oh, I better not fight this battle. Whereas at Clements, I would have been like, no, forget that. I've been here, So it's been good personally, and it's been kind of fun to pick out the instruments and to pick out what I want and be told, okay, this is what you get. So, that was, I was like, we need electricity in the front of the marching field. Okay. I was just like, wait, what? You just said okay to that. Yeah, it'll happen this week. And sure enough, it happened that week. And so I asked for the tower to be moved back. And they're like, okay. They made sure that they did that. I was very shocked. They're like, we want to do this right from the beginning. And I've never had that opportunity before. So it'll be interesting to meld people coming from 2 different high schools and 3 different junior highs into Jordan. But it should be fun. It'll be a great way to end my career. If I could stay there as long as I could, that's what I would want to do. So,
Well, it'll be fun to see what you do with that program.
it'll be fun. Yeah.
So one of the reasons, I mean, you kind of mentioned this is one of the other things we talked about on the teaching side of things, that you've got some great experiences in the summers teaching drum corps with some fantastic folks, and you've taught at Blue Coats, you've taught at Santa Clara Vanguard for several years. You were with the Blue Devils. And
yeah, I was. We were going to do it. Actually, today was the day I flew out for Blue Devils. I looked at my phone. I was like, that's not happening.
And so that was part of the reason to bring you on, is to talk about, because a lot of our audience are band directors. And so you've got all these great experiences. And I know you've taken some of those things and brought into the classroom. So what are some things that you found to be real successful that you've used, learned, experimented in the drum corps activity at that really high level that you've been able to implement at your Clements program, which I'm sure you'll transfer into the Jordan program?
Well, one of the things that I've learned, I learned a lot from working with J.D. Shaw for the past 8 years at Santa Clara, and then with Chip Krotz for the past. Chip and I worked at Santa Clara for 4 years, and then we worked with each other at Spirit of Atlanta, or Spirit of JSU. I actually taught them for 4 years. I kind of started at the lowest level corps, not Spirit, but Kiwanis Cavaliers. If anybody remembers who the Kiwanis Cavaliers were, I taught the Kiwanis Cavaliers, and I showed up as a mellophone tech, and then I ended up running visual. I was, how did this happen? And Doug Darwin made the comment. He goes, because you're the only one who's ever run a marching band. And somebody quit. In the drum corps world, it's an interesting turnover. I'll just leave it at that sometimes. So, one of the things that I've learned from drum corps is understanding how to move air and flow air. We usually, at Clements, we would only march 60 to 62 horns, brass players. And people are always like, how can you get them to play so loud and not distort out of their sections? But they just seem to just slam you, put you back in your seat. And I said, well, it's because I've learned how to use the balloon system that JD was not pushed on us, but wanted us to use at Santa Clara. And I took it and I kind of translated it to band. So the kids understand how to flow air and understand how to take air in on a visual phrase. And then there's all kinds of little tricks. I learned a trick from Ryan Adamson about mellophones. We would do foghorn which is we would take one part of the tuning slide out and we would find the center of the mellophone, which is really a trumpet player trick. I play French horn. I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, just watch. And so I did it at Clements with all the brass instruments. I had them take out part of their tuning slide, and I would find out how badly the kids were playing out of the center of their instruments. And then when I'd say, hey, let's do some foghorn halfway through the season, they would do it and they'd get back in their notches and they would be like, oh my God, it was more resonant, it was taller, and they were finding the center of their instrument. But the balloon system, you know, there's a balloon rate that we would use to inflate, and that equated to a dynamic. So 8 count air was mezzo forte, 6 count air was mezzo forte plus, 4 count air was forte, 2 count air was 2Fs, and we'd always joke 1 count air was just like rip people's faces off and don't, well, you're offending somebody at that point. And that has to do with how fast you blow the balloon up at a certain tempo. So after doing that for 4 years at Clements, it got down to, I need 4 count air here, and the kids would just do it. And then that would translate even for concert band. So so that would translate into some, you know, I would say, hey guys, please don't play 4 count air, you know, in this soft part of this piece, that it needs to be whisper air. So there's this different things that I would take from drum corps that we would talk about. We've also implemented from drum corps a unified articulation system. And I think a lot of times in the band world, people think articulations are lengths, but articulation is how you start a note to me. So I took a lot of that from what I did at Bluecoats and at Santa Clara, and we made it into a grid at Clements. So even when we would go into concert band season, I would go, okay, guys, that really needs to be a shorter lift. And they would go, okay, and they would just do it. And people were like, what did they, wait, they just fixed that in one thing. I said, well, because it started in marching band. So we have a whole system of like a standard accent, special effect accent, forzando accent, and it goes on from there. A long lift, a short lift, the shortest lift. We never really use the word staccato. We never really use the word marcato. We never use, you know, the legato. We just talk about, okay, left, right edge to left edge is touching. They would use that lingo. So we would put things into perspective of kids. So a kid in the 3rd band at Clements, if I said play with a short lift, he knew exactly what that meant because he was in the marching season as a kid in the top band. And all 3 band directors were using that lingo. And for the most part, the junior high band directors were using that lingo. So when a kid came in and I would say, okay, we're going to do this or that or whatever, I'll be like, wait, you're doing that way too heavy. You're playing that way too weighted. And then all the kids around him would go, yeah, you need to lighten up on the left edge of your note. So there's just a lot of things from drum corps from a pedagogical standpoint that I learned. I learned a lot about also how to deal with ensemble spreads in a marching band. And, you know, drum corps will sit there and put things in very bizarre spreads and stuff. And I've learned how to deconstruct those times. And then when in drum corps, you'll deconstruct stuff where it's like, okay, tenors and tubas play, and front ensemble and trumpets play, and trumpet twos don't play. And a lot of times band directors just keep on pinging away with the metronome. Whereas I'm like, the other thing I learned was sometimes you have to move the metronome in marching band because the pulse pocket is not on the 50-yard line. And so I actually was very guilty of that until I really got with Santa Clara and I was seeing, oh, we have to go wherever Paul's drum line goes, you know, with the pulse, or we'd have to have some kind of timing formula. So those are a lot of the things I learned in drum corps. One of the things I will say that I kind of got on some people on drum corps was stop rehearsing the same thing wrong and thinking that 3 hours of rehearsal is going to fix it. So I think that, you know, a lot of times where I hate to say this, but a lot of times in drum corps, we sometimes just kill time as opposed to, well, let's do a lot of little things and fix them together. And that's why I'm not the most heavy person on all days, but I love show days because on a show day, you might only have 3.5 hours total. And so in high school marching band, you really only have 3 hours a day or 2.5. And so sometimes you get a person from drum corps who's like, yeah, well, we're going to do this. So I'm like, dude, we have to learn this by Friday. We have to have this done. This has to happen. You know, we don't have 2.5 hours to work 5 sets and figure it out. And so I've just learned to see that there's a lot of people sometimes who come out of the drum corps world that they're so used to almost killing time. Well, we have a 5-hour block, which is insane. I think only a few drum corps do that. But, you know, if we have 3.5 hours, you know, you pace it better. You do this, you do that. And that's some of the stuff that I've learned not to do from drum corps. It's just like, well, we're going to do 3.5 hours of the same segment. And you can drill stuff, but you have to make it different. And that's one of the things I was very proud of at Vanguard, is that we would do different things with the horn line every day. There were some things that we did the same. There were some things that we would do different. We had a lot of things that we would just touch upon, and it made the kids fresher, especially those, you know, when you get to the middle of the summer and they're just looking at you like isolated. It's not quite July 4th, and they're like, ugh, I'm ready for that parade and that off day. And so transferring that to marching band, it's helped me pace the band, where I go, okay, we can be a little bit slow here, or now we just need to work smarter, not harder or longer. So, but the balloon thing, I'll use the word flowing air.
Yep.
We don't ever use the word push. We use the words 5% more at the front of the note. We use the wording a lot of times in this kind of, I don't ever use the word play louder like crescendo. I use the word intensify. And with the Vanguard, especially the mellophones, and we would give everybody a different rate. You're going to intensify 20%. You're going to intensify 50%, and everybody stays under the mellophones. And mellophones, you're going to go crazy here. You're going to intensify to the point that you're almost breaking up. So those little things, like the word intensify with a kid, it keeps their sound centered, but they'll fulfill a phrase better. So those are the different things I've learned from those guys, and they've learned a lot from me, from my lingo. And the intensification thing, Chip would always joke about that, and then he used it once, and it actually worked better on an impact. And I said, yeah, but they still didn't play the downbeat of 1 and release it to a +1. And so we use that wording too now. So those are the different things for drum corps I've used. It does apply to woodwinds. It just, you know, we use the same balloon stuff with woodwinds. I tell you what, it especially helps flute players for some reason. And I think it's because flutes don't have a mouthpiece to blow into. So the balloon forces them to think of fast air into the tone hole. So the flute players are the ones who are like, oh my God, I'm playing with a bigger sound here. And I was like, yeah, because you're not, you know, I call it your air's not drooling. So
Yeah.
those are the different things I've learned from drum corps. The visual side, I taught visual with Spirit. I was on music mostly, and at Clements and at Jordan, I'll use pretty much what I use at Spirit. I was a visual caption head or assistant caption head. I was in charge of their technique, and my technique is just keep it simple. I do think some of the drum corps get a little bit complex in their visual interpretation. If you ever watch Blue Devils, it's very simple and it's very basic and it's dance oriented, and they win. So
Yeah.
you know, they visual. There you go. So that's kind of my drum corps background from that kind of stuff. And being with JD, the mellophones are always the French horn voice. He builds things around them. But I had to tech the baritones one summer for about 2 or 3 weeks. I found that very interesting and frustrating at the same time. Those are much different human beings than the mellophone players.
Yes, they are.
So,
but you know, it's interesting because some people have different perspectives and thoughts on drum corps, and there's more people in the band world and in Texas, everywhere, but especially in Texas. But it's good to hear that there are people that take from and take to both, because I think the whole 8-hour rule of teachers from Texas that do the drum corps activity, the 8-hour rule helps force them to, let's get more done. Like you were kind of talking about, like you got to learn how to be more efficient. And then all the stuff you brought into is just great that there's great teaching happening that we can use.
I brought in like mouthpiece inside the mouth stuff, which is the big Tom Bennett thing from U of H. And a lot of those guys at Vanguard thought I was insane, especially the kids from out of state. The Texas kids kind of knew about it. I was like, put your mouthpiece inside the mouth and flow air with all your valves down. And they just would look at me like, you want me to do what? I said, just do it. And they were like, wow, I sound better. I was like, well, I just opened up your oral cavity. And they're like, where did you steal that from? And I was like, it's a Tom Bennett, trick. And he just did it one day on a band. He was just experimenting. So I take some of those tricks from the clinicians I have, and I would use them with drum corps. One of the things, the other thing that I would say about drum corps is that sometimes it's a mental game that you can apply to your band kids. You can kind of trick them into playing what you want them to do. And I think that's what half the game is with drum corps. So when you're rehearsing something every day, it's all about tricking them into getting how you do it instead of. And some drum corps, there's a bunch of them that use the breathing tube, I guess.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because there's people who win the Jim Mott Award with that. But for me, using the breathing tube is an unnatural thing. If you're a mellophone player or a trumpet player, you never play with that type of oral shape. But I think they use it as far as that whole flowing of air thing. So, the other thing that I learned is using breathing plans. Like, if we're not playing, we're doing in and out breathing. We're doing recycled breathing, as we call it. And when I implemented that at Clements, I noticed the kids, the longer they went into the show, the less fatigued they were, because they were oxygenating. And I stole that. I took that kind of from Tom Bennett and experimented with it in drum corps. So, but I will say there are some things in drum corps that I've seen that probably shouldn't happen in a high school setting. So, so there's some great things going on in drum corps, but sometimes you don't have to always hire somebody who's a drum corps person for them to be a great musician. And I do think that gets lost in Texas a little bit. You see all the advertisements, DCI experience. And there's some people who aren't built to be a public school teacher because they've done nothing but DCI. So there's a balance there. So anyways.
But you bring a lot to your kids, and the students, man, they're gonna just take off with it too. So that's great. So
yeah. I make sure also that I go watch other people warm up.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I go watch other people warm up, even if I don't agree with it. I try to go steal something from watching them warm up. Band, drum corps, or I'll just go watch them do a visual warm up. I was like, I never thought of that. I stole something from the Blue Devils 3 or 4 years ago, and the kids loved it at Clements. They're like, where'd you get that? I was like, watching them do something in a tennis court while we're warming up at a show. So I do think that watching other groups do stuff in any activity is it either validates what you're doing or it gives you an idea to do something different. And I've been doing this now for 27 years, and I still go watch other people warm up. So,
well, it's working. So, and it's great advice for people to do, and to hear it from you, to keep learning. And I know you bring people into your band hall too, the same thing, and you get that same information and new perspectives.
People need to establish their own identity sometimes. That's the biggest thing. I've established that this is what I do, and take it or leave it. This is what I like my band to sound like. And I think it's been successful.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, the last subject we have has nothing to do with music and a lot to do with band directors. So you've become kind of a little phenom on the Facebook world, social media world recently, band directors, with this new BBQ'ing Facebook group for band directors.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, you must be the grill master.
First of all, if you go to this group, some of these guys, I think they've been waiting for this group to happen. Because, Joey Lucida builds his own barbecue pits. Some of these guys have been like, okay, I feel really dumb now. Both of my children, they go to another high school. Because I don't live in the Clements attendance zone, and I didn't get to see them a whole lot when they were in band, except when we were competing against each other. So I just started grilling about 10 or 12 years ago, and Sunday was Galloway Grill Day. And that's when the 4 of us were home, and we would grill, and it turned into this kind of social thing for my family. Like, oh, Dad's going to grill today. And so one day I took a picture of what I was grilling, and I'm really big into marinating steaks. If anybody has seen it, that's what I'm really big into, is marinating steaks. And I got like 100 likes on this picture when Facebook was more of its infancy. And then I had a couple people at Vanguard, and like 20, we're trapped in this place called Toll House. So it's a high school on the outskirts of Fresno. It's horrible. Anyways, it's in the desert almost. But they were like, we need something real. Would you drive into town and would you grill something for us? So I found an old broken gas grill. And this is the most horrible thing. This is a fire area. Like, that part of California has major fires. We were stuck there once when fire planes came in. They said we couldn't practice. There was a fire up on the mountain behind us. And so here I am pouring charcoal into the shell of like an old charbroil gas grill. It doesn't have the propane tank, just kind of winging it. And I marinated steaks and I marinated chicken, and I grilled for them, and they thought it was fantastic. And then they went out the next summer. We were at the same place. They found in the school along those barrel grills. And so I cooked like for the Corps one day. And they would like give me and Ryan Adamson a block off. I'll go into town and go get what you need. And so a lot of us had rental cars at the place. So it became this tradition. It started to become a tradition with the Vanguard staff. Like, they would grill. And then when we would stay in a place called Weed, California, which is up north, it's on the border of Oregon, they had a little bit more organized fire pits and stuff. And, as soon as Daniel got there, the first words out of some of the staff's mouths was like, we're giving you this block off and you're going to get the food. And I mean, at some points I was grilling for 20, 30, 35 staff members. And so I started grilling more at home, more than one day of the week, and was taking pictures of it. And it started turning into Monday morning staff meeting talk about what did Daniel grill on Sunday night. I remember some band director of a really great band said, you are the subject of what did he do? What did he do last night? Did you see it on Facebook? So, so the grilling thing just got more and more, and I started to get bigger and more elaborate grills. I was burning through my grills and all this stuff. And then finally, Chip Krotz said, you need to start an Instagram last summer called Grills, 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 instead of Girls, Girls, Girls. And I don't do Instagram. And so when the COVID thing happened, I had all this time in my hands. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, we just had time on our hands. And I said, I'm going to start this grilling group, band directors who like to grill. And I just went through my friend list, and I just started sending invitations to people who I thought would like it. And before I knew it, we were at 500 people, and they're exchanging ideas, and they're talking to each other, and they're doing this, that, and the other. And so then we got to, right before Memorial Day weekend, we got to about 850 people, and I put on there, we need to hit 1,000 by the end of the weekend. And we hit 1,200 people on that. And now there's people, I've had my first international person come in, a band director from New Zealand, who asked to be a part of it. And pretty much every hour on my phone, I have 2 or 3 people wanting into the grill group that I have to accept. And I think if I look at my phone right now, we're at 1,655 members. And it just turned into this fun thing. And I've had so many people, because of everything that's going on in the world right now, so many people are saying, this is the best thing on Facebook. Because it's really just and I changed it to and friends. So like, I invited my theater director at my new high school, and he's all about it. He goes, this is the coolest thing. He goes, the theater people would never do this. And I was like, okay. And so I've learned a lot by watching it.
Yeah.
I've never learned how to do ribs, and I just got ribs in the mail through Butcher Box. And I'm like, I don't know how to do ribs. So I put on there, I don't know how to do ribs. And I must have had 13 responses within an hour saying, this is how I do them. This is how I do them. So it's turned into this kind of cult phenom thing. And it really shows you how many band directors grill. And if you can believe this, a lot of my female band director friends, they now have grills. Mm-hmm. One of them came over to my house 3 weeks ago, and just looked at the grill. She goes, so is this? I said, no, you live alone. You don't want that. You want this. And we went to Walmart and I showed her what to get and said, this is perfect grill for you. And, other people, somebody today, Kathy Benford, said, I got my grill today and is posting it all over the thing. So I just started it as something to be a diversion for us, and it's turned into something that's actually pretty cool. There's very serious people who want it to happen at TMEA. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
They want us to have a grill, like, you want to be a judge, so
Of course.
you asked me to judge. They want to. They want to have a meeting of the band director. They want to make shirts. I mean, it has gone so much bigger than I thought it would. But honestly, it started way back with my family and just grilling on Sundays. And we called it Galloway Grill Day at the Galloway compound. And I would put it up on Facebook. And even some of my junior high band directors were like, where are you getting this meat? It's expensive. And I was like, well, it's not that expensive if you look for it. And with some of these guys, if you look at what they're grilling, I'm like, man, that's way more than I would pay for. So I'm real big into the marinade side of it. That's my big thing, is I've experimented with marinating meat. You see people with rubs, just people that they chicken. I'm real big on putting shrimp on the grill, and it's just turned into a kind of a fun hobby. And I didn't realize how many people, I don't know if you're surprised by it, I just didn't realize how many music people like to grill. Maybe it's just a release. We're outdoor people for band directors anyways, because we have to be, we forced to be. But we seem to be a lot of carnivores in us.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of carnivores.
What's your go-to?
Okay, well, my go-to is just regular old Worcestershire sauce and Laurie's. It's a Laurie's. It's like the steak and chops marinade, or there's this new marinade in a bag that we got that was really great. You just put the meat in there, but I like the kind of marinade that I can make. And then I usually do that over a New York strip. And the big thing that I do is I coat the grill with olive oil, so nothing ever sticks. And the other thing that I think is really important is that when people have problems with temperatures and grills, it's because they can't change the level of the coals. So I went out and got a grill that has 6 different levels. This almost looks like a gear shift. And so when I want to do something slow, like a pork loin, I'm getting hungry just thinking of this. I did a pork loin. I got the grill going, and I put it down on the 6th level down, and it cooked the pork loin perfectly. And if I want to do a quick sear, I'll raise it up to 1, sear it, and I can lower it. So my go-to is like New York strips, shrimp with, and I'll drizzle the olive oil on the shrimp to keep it from drying out, and then I'll put Old Bay's. And a lot of people in Texas don't know Old Bay's, but Old Bay's is from East Coast, and you put it on like lobster, all that kind of stuff. That's my go-to. A lot of people want to do ribs. I'm okay with ribs, but my go-to is like a good T-bone, a good New York strip, and medium to just slightly under medium, and that's my perfect thing. The next thing I would say my go-to is just good old-fashioned hamburgers that are seasoned really well, not burnt like hockey pucks. So I'm just now getting into cooking chicken on the grill, because sometimes you can dry chicken out really fast accidentally. So the whole level thing has really helped. But these guys with the wooden pellets and I was just like, that's fine. I just don't like those, because I'm like, I don't want to plug something in, but I will put an advertisement, get an air fryer for everything else, because that's pretty, but that's my go-to. I don't know what your go-to is, Chad.
If I can, it's a bone-in ribeye.
Bone-in ribeye. Yep, that sounds great.
That is the way to go, and just a great steak, and let the meat speak for itself.
I order a lot of Omaha steak. So I like the beef tenderloin. Every time I'm like somewhere that has steak on sale and I'm maybe kind of close to its expiration date, I'll buy it and I'll freeze it. Yeah. So like right now, my wife's like, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Oh, let me guess. You probably could pick out your cut of steak in the freezer. And I'm like, yeah, there's pretty much everything you can get. But Omaha steaks, the beef tenderloin is really good. Um, you know, that's my go-to. But I think that the whole grilling movement in general has exploded amongst the United States. It's become a big cultural thing, and we just hit upon something that people are liking. And because they're stuck at home, they're doing it almost. There's some guys who post every day that they're grilling. I'm like, where are you getting all this meat? And they're like, I just have it shipped to my house. So they're like, I don't even have to leave my house. So, and I'm real big, not against the gas people, but charcoal. The gas thing I used to use, and I would try to imitate the smoke part of it, like putting wood chips in. It's just not the same. So I use like Jack Daniel's, their old whiskey barrel chips. I don't know if you've seen those. You can get those. I like using mesquite hickory.
Yeah.
And also the newest thing I like using is applewood smoked chips because it has a little bit of sweetness to it. So that's pretty much, my go-to is the marinade side of things. I don't do the rubs quite as much.
I love it. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of people that talk about it and enjoy sharing and learning both, and trying new things too. I think that's part of it, is stuff that people haven't. I've never tried that, and give it a shot. So, but it's really cool.
Well, one of the things, have you ever been to the Laurie's restaurant in Indianapolis? There's a Laurie's restaurant. So I always go trying to win that huge grill there. There's a huge grill that you could put your business card in. But that, Laurie's has like beer can chicken. That's the next thing I want to try is beer can chicken, where you put a beer can on the chicken. But that's the Laurie's seasoning and all that stuff is kind of what I grew up with. And so that's why I like using the Laurie's marinades and their seasonings. And I've also found out that if you've seen on the Facebook page, there are hundreds of seasonings out there.
Yeah.
Because when I asked for, hey, what do y'all season pork with? I mean, I was like, okay, I need to take notes or record this or something. It was crazy. The whole seasoning market has exploded. So I'm really happy that people are enjoying it, because educators have been kind of down. You see people posting stuff that are frustrated with stuff. But when they get in that grill page, we're all in this together, kind of having fun thing. And that's the best thing about it, is educators kind of coming together. And I really do think that when we come back together, we're going to have a meeting and grill somewhere. Like they're talking to the city of San Antonio about getting permits to grill. And I was like, wow, I never would have thought that would have happened on March 12th when I started the page.
Right.
I think Facebook has told me that we're one of the fastest growing pages. Like the metric on there has said that your metric is like off the charts, how quickly it's grown. But maybe by the end of the summer, we'll be at 3,000 members for a group that's pretty crazy. So it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's been a lot of fun, Chad, to do that. And I didn't mean it. It was almost a joke. Chip was daring me to kind of do something. He goes, I always see you grilling. You should do this. And so when I did it, he was just like, dude, this is crazy. People are talking about this in Atlanta. And but I got my first international band director today.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, Daniel Galloway, I got to thank you very much for joining us on the Hey Band Network today. It's been a pleasure to listen to you talk about band and brass and barbecue.
The 3 B's right there.
Yeah. So
have the best of the 3 B's. I really appreciate you inviting me on to here. It's an honor to talk to all the band directors out there, or whoever's watching this. And join my group and have fun. So
that link going across the bottom so you can join the name of that group. So make sure you've got that. For everybody else, make sure you check out the Hey Band Network YouTube channel and check out our remote teaching series and our leadership series and other videos like this one. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Bye, guys.